Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a Coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout of thanks and appreciation to Smith Tools and Purchase, Level Plane Voem, Vitali C, Colton James, BG, Survive the Spin, FE Patriot, Thomas van der Zander, Gary Hughes, Measured Flat, Chris Wouters, Sea Level Cultist, Mitch Kennedy, Rod, the name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Males 24, Unamento, M, Iron 26, Endless, Golden McKiernan, Retro Bill, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Dalwest Watson, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Texas Mike, Chow Yun Cat, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand across to whoever is in Google and Discord so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show. Hello?
Hey Nathan, it's Vitali. Actually, I just have a little personal question about your memberships. Do you still offer memberships on your YouTube site?
Yeah.
Because I can't update my payment method. I think my membership got paused, and I need to enter new membership. And every time it keeps taking me there, but I think it's because my thing is paused. It won't let me do a membership. I think you might have to take me off of the membership, so I sign on as a new member or something like that.
That shouldn't be the case, but I mean, thank you for letting me know. I don't know what to do about it. That shouldn't be the case. It should just be dead easy.
Yeah, because when I go on the site now, there's no membership option whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to jump to any rash conclusions, but YouTube mess with me. So this would be no different if they're messing with me in membership terms. So that's pretty low, right? I mean, that is also interesting because they also push me to turn on memberships on the second channel. So I've always avoided it, right? I've never gone in and intentionally looked at the extra abilities that the second channel's had. It's just like an extra bonus. But they went on to that channel, and immediately it was into the process of turning on memberships with me. It's like naturally ushering me through the process. I'm like, okay, fine. I won't necessarily mention it or plug it, which is what I had to do when I first got memberships for this channel, and I was more than happy to do it. I was delighted, in fact, because I really wanted to get memberships. But the second channel, I don't care really. It's not something I'm going to do anything with. But they've pushed me to turn it on, so I've turned it on. So there's now memberships on the second channel. It's just interesting that typically people aren't mentioning anything about memberships, and then almost immediately, it was only a couple of days ago I turned on that membership feature on the second channel, that you're now asking me about memberships being turned off on the main channel, which I do care about. Very interesting.
Well, like I said, I'm not sure if it's turned off or it's just because my account is paused and it's just not giving me that option for some reason. It could also be the case, but we'll see.
Fair enough. Did you say, Neil? Did you say something?
I'm here, Neil.
I said we're getting sloppy. I'm the only one here. How many people are in Discord? What the hell's going on here?
Not the only one here. It's about, I don't know, half a dozen people in Discord. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm here, but I'm driving.
Say again?
Good evening.
Hey, Daz. Daz, we've got Dunk, Peaceful Warrior, Vitali, Surge, is it? Search. Can't see.
Sasha Bok Diebo.
Ah, Sasha. Hello.
Šegrt Hlapić.
That's what I said. Well, it's all good to be here. Finished off my eBay shop over the weekend. Quite happy with it. Sold 2 microphones, because I'm sure you're all really concerned about me paying my mortgage. Although you say that, I've just literally had a conversation about memberships, right, which is quite directly paying my mortgage, so I shouldn't really intimate that it's not the case when that is absolutely the case from people supporting me with memberships and so on and so forth. But having to supplement it with microphones isn't necessarily of interest to people who are supporting me anyway. Sold a couple of microphones, and then the last 3 that I purchased, which were going to be, or my intention was that they'd be the last 3 I'd purchased, because I could just stick them up and they'd go up for sale, and that would be it. All the last 3 were broken. One is with Craig being fixed. One is sat with me because it's a broken wire that I'll hopefully do in his presence when I go and pick up the last one that was broken, hopefully mended, may or may not be, we'll find out soon. And then the third one, I've just contacted them and said, this is broken. I wasn't under the impression it would be. I'm never under the impression it will be. They're like, no worries, we'll send another one out. I'm like, oh, all right, okay, well, that's good. Happy days. What I want to do...
You didn't sell your...
Go on, sorry.
So you didn't sell your daughter's favourite, did you?
I did. Yeah, that's why I'm buying this one. It's to replace that one. Well...
Oh, how could you?
That's what she said. She said, you said she only my phone. I'm like, yeah, I want to pay the mortgage. I'm like, I'll replace it. We've got about 12 microphones. Don't worry, you'll never be without a microphone, Eleanor. And she's like, all right, no worries. She had totally understood. But her microphone was... They're all my favourite, but that one I particularly liked because I just... Number one, no one else is doing it that way, right? Nobody else uses a gooseneck. And they're really high quality. Now, I bought one that was particular. I was fussy about what I wanted it to do, so I bought a particular brand and a particular type of cartridge and so on and so forth. I was very fussy. Now, after doing it, I'm like, what if I was 10 times less fussy but tried to achieve the same thing? So I'm like, they must have like clearances of these things because they use them in offices and conference centres, things like that. So you'd assume that there's going to be someone out there who goes and buys a load of furniture like office chairs and desks, and amongst it, there'll be a load of these microphones. But because they've got 20 of them, they just want to sell them and clear them, cheap and quick. So I found one. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So I bought it, and sure enough, it didn't function as I'd hoped. It needed an adapter. So I went out, found the obscure adapter for it, plugged it in today, didn't work. And that's the same company that said, oh, we'll replace it. But if I can get it to work, it's not quite as good a story on the video. But the idea is that instead of it costing maybe £100, which is what the one I got for my daughter would cost to, just put together with random bits on eBay, second hand, you end up with a piece of equipment that's maybe worth £400 or £500 at retail value new. So in other words, the quality is high. But for maybe £100, I'm like, but I bet I could do it for less. I bet I could do it for half, or even less, like maybe £30 or £40 for an almost identical experience. So that's what I'm trying to do. But instead of that, it's turning into something that, that might be an interesting product to sell, and I might make a £5 out of it, or maybe even £10 out of it. It's turning into, I'm wasting time with this thing, contacting them and telling me it's broken and testing it, and instead of just selling it, it's when you've got these little things that maybe only make you £5 or £10 if they sell at all, you don't want to waste any time with them. Can't wait for it to be over. I want the book to be finished. I really do. I just want it to generate some small. It's not even like I need that much. Maybe £200 or £300 a month tops of revenue.
How we doing on that? When is the next session?
I don't know, but not soon enough. That's the answer to that question. a couple of months ago, I'm like, no, I totally get it. It's becoming a reference book. It's very important. It'll probably outlive me as a publication. That's all still true. But I'm still here and I'm still poor. I don't want to be flogging any more bloody microphones and contacting people. It was fun when they weren't broken. When you're dealing with broken ones, it stops being fun right quick. When you're just talking into them going, wow, this sounds cool. This was used by the Beatles. I'm going to sell this, hopefully for a profit. How wonderful. Life is good. When it's like, you turn it on and go, check, check, and all you can hear is... And then you turn the gain right up and you can just hear your voice suddenly again, it's bust and microphonic. You're like, what's wrong with this microphone? And on the playback, it's... You're like, oh, God. Why can't they all be like the first Beatles mic and just work where you expected them to be broken? Why can't they all magically fix themselves in the post? I'm not going to buy any more though. That's the bottom line. I said that last week, and I absolutely meant it. Even though I've got, strictly speaking, 3 less products that I'd like to have in my inventory. What did I say last time? Infantry. In my infantry. But yeah, I'd like a dozen products, basically.
Now we need to have a meeting, and at this meeting we got to set days. When can everybody be here? And have 3 days out of the week. After the after show, we get down to business.
Well, hopefully that'll be today. Last I heard we'd be doing it today. So we'll do an hour's show. And then in the after show, hopefully Adam will join. My youngest daughter's birthday yesterday, so everywhere here is covered in what they call mylar balloons. Helium balloons. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. It's helium balloons everywhere and toys everywhere. I'm sure my kid will be keen to play with is the point, so I won't necessarily hang around forever in the after show.
That's a classic. A flat earther couldn't figure it out, couldn't remember helium.
Anyway. Where is everybody? I thought at least Sensual Goat had joined as he shared a video.
I've been out of commission the whole week, just running around doing orders. So I ain't been paying attention to Teams.
Yeah, I really better update Skype, hadn't I?
I don't know what I did, but I no longer have Master B. I have to type it in and search for it.
Excuse me. Yeah, we'll have to figure all that out. I just can't be bothered to update to Teams. Yet another thing on the list of things that I haven't got time to do. Yeah, I'll update Teams sometime this week. Now that I finally finish off my eBay store, I'm happy to leave it, which is, that's how it should be, right? It should just be capable of just being left alone. I shouldn't have to do anything with it. Why a little bit quiet? It's just me. My line looks a little bit low. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yeah, loud and clear, mate.
Okay.
You sound good.
I can.
Fine. It just maybe my lights just look a bit lower than they normally do. Right, a couple of minutes and we'll go live.
I used to have an eBay store with my mom. We would go to garage sales and pick up rare things and resell them. We would pay like $1 and sell stuff for like $20, $30, whatever.
Yep, Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, basically. I'm going around the back basement section of eBay to find things that people don't want to pay any advertising fees for and sit unsold for months and months, haggling them for as cheap as possible and then hopefully turning them around for 20 or 30% profit. Not a massive amount, but it's very difficult to scrape any profit out of second-hand items. And you've got to find people who are desperate to sell their item in the first place to have a stock of stuff that you can sell at a tiny little profit, but you've got to have enough of it to churn it and have it be, worthwhile. You've got to be making that £10 or £15 every day or so throughout the month. Otherwise it ain't worth it. But I'm not like trying to make a living through it. I'm just trying to supplement an already inexistent living while I write a book. You know what I mean? I've done it before when I've had no job and I've had to work just solely on eBay. And then when you're struggling for stock, you go out onto the free cycling sites where people advertise stuff that's just that little bit too good to send to the dump, but not good enough to sell on eBay. So I go and round it all up and it's explicit that you're not supposed to sell it on eBay. And you're like, I don't care. I want to pay my mortgage. It's definitely getting sold on eBay. Are you going to sell it on eBay? No. It's like, I'm not going to tell you how I'm surviving. But in this instance, it's not like that. It's just like, no, okay, I can see that there's a slight deficit. So I need to do something about that proactively before I run out of actual money to buy stuff with and have a stock of anything. Plus, I wanted to learn about mics, right? How else are you going to do it unless you've got loads of money to invest in stuff that you just don't necessarily use? Buying them and selling them is a very useful way of learning about something. Right, let's do a live show.
Gonna have a meeting today.
Meeting about what, Neil?
Me being the only one on the panel. This is ridiculous. And I've had it.
Not that it matters. In the pre-show, I was, what's going on? No data? It looks like I've got a live issue. Talking amongst yourselves, let me check if I've actually gone out live to the audience, because it says there's no data coming through this live stream. YouTube Live, whatever it's called, studio. Let me just check. Can you see a live stream, Neil? I can only hope that it'll kick in, but I mean, if it doesn't, it'll end up being an uncut and after show for the members only. Okay, well, we can only plod on. A bit of housekeeping. As we are recording, so I suppose that's one consolation when you don't have a functional live stream. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curve.
That's a negative.
But guys in Discord, you all awake? You had any evidence of Earth curve over the weekend?
No, the harder I look, or the more I look, the less I find. It's just not there.
Because it only exists in the maths. It never really existed in physical reality. But we're all fighting about what we do and don't see with respect to a horizon that's claimed to be a physical geometric sphere edge known as Earth curve.
Yeah, and that was why we missed it. All the flat earth proofs that were in front of our face, even back in the days of Isle of Man. We missed it because we were looking for Earth curve when we were standing on a flat plane the whole time, and they all knew it.
Interesting. What about any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
That's another thing we were wasting our time on.
Axial rotation's not something that you could say doesn't at least have something you can point towards and suggest is a consequence of an Earth that's turning beneath the skies. So when you see the stars moving, you can say, okay, well, that's as a consequence of my heliocentric belief in a world that's turning. Whereas Earth curve, what you're looking at, a horizon, axiomatically linked to horizontal and level and measuring angles with respect to the plane of Earth's surface and things of that nature. Everything about the horizon is indicative of a flat plane. Maybe that's why it was used. It's so egregious to have used something that is directly connected to the horizontal nature of Earth's measurements and call it Earth curve. But yeah, axial rotation is kind of like, I can understand people's confusion if they're told that movement of the stars is actually as a consequence of the Earth's rotation beneath them. Well, they are told that. It's Coriolis effect, right? Oh, it's kicked in. Look, it looks like we're live. It says we've been live for 1 minute. Well, hopefully we're live.
You're locked.
Did it just kick in? Did it just work? Okay, well, we are.
Yeah,
I've done a full... Brilliant.
No,
I don't care if it's working, it's working. I did a full intro, live intro, for those of you who've joined us. You haven't heard it because I can see from my monitoring that you've only had us for 1 minute and 22 seconds, so I'd imagine it started working somewhere in the middle of housekeeping. Well, there we go. That's just Discord and YouTube. Occasionally they're quirky, and this is no different. But good to have you, live audience. Please share the show. Should I pretend like it's a circumstance to do a proper intro? I mean, I don't see why not. We are actually fully live. It's only been 1 minute. Let's do a proper intro. It's going to be weird on the recording because I think there's going to be 3 introductions now. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion that you're already privy to, then click the link below this video and join the panel. Be sure not to swear because you'll be kicked out, and please don't rejoin because you'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream should you be kicked out for swearing. So there we go, full proper intros. We are definitely live now. Better late than never. I don't know why that happened. I don't know why we've been given the run around by YouTube, but we have. So there we go. An intro 1.5 minutes into the show. Bizarre. But that's how you get it sometimes from Flat Earth Debate. It says $10 not to talk about microphones. Too late, Chardo. You're one of the people who likes my microphone talk. I know you are. Now, I've had to do that already in the pre-show, explain why I'm supplementing what would typically be supplemented with extra videos, shorts, OMI appearances, things of that nature would keep me busy on YouTube. But writing a book, when I say I have literally not got enough hours in the day to do what I already do, when something else comes along, in this case writing a book, you can't just insert an extra 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours into the day to do that. You just have to accept that there are other things that you cannot do when you're doing that. Well, that has a direct effect to my income, and therefore I've had to buy in microphones to supplement my revenue. I need to keep a certain amount coming in so that the bit that goes out, more importantly than anything, the mortgage, does actually get paid. And as far as I'm, tying certain outgoings to certain income, one of the things I do directly tie to my mortgage is actually the YouTube ad revenue. And if I'm doing less videos at a time when there's a dip or a lull in YouTube ad revenue, then that is me specifically being able to say, well, that means I can't pay my mortgage this month. I can. There's other revenue streams that I have. But if any of them dip, I need to do something about it, because I do genuinely live on quite a tight budget, a very fine knife edge, as I've described it in previous shows. I'm not just saying it for effect to e-beg. I mean it in the most sincerest of fashion. Now, given that I bought a recent microphone upgrade, it seems a bit distasteful to e-beg when you're struggling a little bit. Like, no, I can do something about that, as I've just spent a month or two learning about how microphones work. Good value you got out of that super chat telling me not to talk about microphones there, Jardo. Next time, just say hello in your super chat, and I probably won't talk about microphones. Anyway, we were halfway through housekeeping. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
I don't know. Very good question, though. I'd love to know. Please let us know. Answers on a postcard. What's the moon? What are the stars? Who knows? They're not long away places that we can travel to via spaceships.
You know what's weird about the moon? The other day I was looking at it. It was very early in the morning. It was out, and it was huge. And as I was driving, it seemed like it was getting smaller and then bigger and then smaller, like right before my eyes. Very weird, the moon.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's often times I look at it and go, that looks weird compared to my imagined version of what it is, and therefore what it should be doing and behaving as such. and it isn't, and you're like, okay, I don't have an explanation for any of these things in the sky. And our best tracking of them has developed into a model mathematically called heliocentric worldview, as in heliocentrism. That worldview isn't a world that we can inhabit when we're measuring Earth flat to achieve it, and, you know, giving the church an ability to tell us when Easter will be.
You know what's funny? Because I was doing orders with Instacart, and then the sun came up, and I was like, "Look at this, sun's coming up like clockwork." And then I said, "You know what? It is clockwork." And then you just sit back and you're like at awe of the Creator, because someone designed all of this.
Yeah, I mean, there are better proofs of God, but when you know them anyway, and you just, you know, dealing with your reality as it presents itself to you on a day-by-day basis, yeah, you do often revel in the Creator's marvellous work when you see things like a sunrise, and your appreciation for it is given to you whether or not you're told that the sun is coming up from behind an Earth curve edge or not. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved adjacent? That'd be a curved baseline giving you an angle.
Then it wouldn't be an angle, Nathan.
No. Well, given that that's the basis of the heliocentric worldview, you'd expect them to be able to at least justify their utilisation of these elevation angles as depicted on screen for my live audience. 56 people watching though. Woo-hoo-hoo! Please share the show. I'm sure I said it in the intro within the first 2 minutes of the show that had already started. What about any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
The only thing they come up with is the Earth sonograms.
Yeah, they get covered in the book. P waves and S waves, seismology, things of that nature are all flat Earth proofs. They're measuring a flat plane. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, without containment, you could have no pressure.
Yeah, that's how we know we're not travelling to far away lands. So when you see those shorts and they say, here's NASA presenting you a sunrise from Mars, it's the biggest load of old nonsense you've ever heard, because it would involve a trip to an area that violates the second law of thermodynamics. That's to say, they'd have to violate that law of nature where gas fills spaces, because they're travelling through a space that they assert is a vacuum that the gas they've just left, the Earth's high pressure gas, isn't filling. Direct violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Gas fills space. Based on that fact that gas fills space, the sky above our head is not a vacuum. We'd have no gas to breathe. What about any scientific evidence of gravity?
It's just a word. I mean, there was
What's
never
gravity?
any evidence of gravity.
What's gravity? Well, there's about 5 different versions of gravity. So it depends on the context and the person that you're speaking to. Most average, uneducated bull believers think it's a force. It isn't. It hasn't been so for 110 years.
It's heliocentric God.
I
don't know
take
if
umbrage with that when you say it hasn't been a force for 110 years. I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's never been a force.
It was a force. Mass attracting mass. As much as Newton might deny it in his letters, it is, in principle, a force of mass attracting mass when it was asserted as being Newtonian gravitation. That's what you taught in high school. So as much
Yeah,
as
but
you...
was it happening?
Yeah, in reality, no. You can defy that principle by looking at gas behaviour itself. That's, debunking that 110-year out-of-date notion that isn't standing true anymore and hasn't done for 110 years. Just look at gas behaviour. Is mass of the gas attracting... No, fundamentally not. It's spreading out in all directions, unbonded. So definitely not. If it was to come in contact with another mass of a gas, then it would bounce off it. It's called elastic collisions, fundamentally undermining, at its base premise, the notion that mass attracts mass in the force of a Newtonian gravity that's been superseded 110 years ago by what is the current rhetoric. That would be bent pseudo-geometry of Einstein. Not a force either, but that's the current rhetoric if you have a higher degree of education. 71 watching, please share the show. I'm just pleased we're live. I didn't think we were going to be. I'd resigned myself that it would only be the recording and this would go out after the fact. But then it all worked itself out. Right in the middle of the first or second housekeeping question.
Yeah, because the wisdom of Neil said keep going and it'll kick in.
It's basically down to you that this all works as swimmingly as it does, Neil. It's not down to my 20 to 30 minutes of preparation time and cool, calm demeanour and being able to actually observe that there's a problem in the first instance. Refresh the page and check what's going on. It's nothing to do with that. It's just you saying carry on, isn't it, really?
Can I say something about that force?
Absolutely not. Go ahead.
But that force, what was described 100 years ago, was never described like a container.
No. I mean, when they say gravity's a container, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
That's
it's like their catch-all word, isn't it?
I think that the gravity was like a force for the falling, measuring, something like that, but has nothing to do with the container, nothing to do with the rotation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's attraction. Yeah.
It's a metaphorical equivalent of a 5-year-old blaming the dog for everything. Gas isn't escaping. The dog did it. Well, we're not being held to the ground. We're not floating away. Oh, dog did it. Dog did it. It's the equivalent of just blaming everything on gravity. And you haven't got an answer to a question, blame gravity. Gravity will tilt it. It's a magical catch-all term that they use quite frequently. So to say, well, gravity's not a container. Yeah, that sounds to me like you've had some baller asserting that gravity's a container. Am I wrong? The dog's the container.
Because if gravity behave like a container, why are you speaking about falling 9.8? That doesn't matter.
Yeah. If you want to break it down to anybody who's... You don't have to be called a layman to be a layman when it comes to gravity. If you're under the misapprehension there's a force of down at 9.8 metres per second squared, then again, I'd direct your attention to the gas you're breathing. It comes out of the ground and goes away from it in all vectors. Once it collides with something like another gas particle or the walls of its containment, which it must have to form pressure, it then changes direction with what's called elastic collisions. But that direction of the gas has absolutely nothing to do with a downward bias when it's vacating the ground and going up. That's what gas does. You were taught it in high school with the water cycle. The sun heats the ground with the water on it. That evaporates, goes up to the clouds, condenses and comes back down as rain. That cycle is perpetual. It's called the water cycle. Shocking. That doesn't involve gas go down, go boom, boom. The gas is going up.
But somehow you need to understand they are bounding the walls of the gravity.
You're taking the mickey out of Thunderfoot Clown. Gas go down, go boom, boom like solid bonded bouncy balls poured out of a jug into a fish tank.
Somehow that force, it's how to say, pushing the gas.
No, gas expands in all directions. It's
Why?
not going down. Right, if we haven't covered any of the housekeeping questions today, tough luck. That's all we're going to do. Because we've got 70 people watching, which is good enough for me. I'm happy to send that 70 people along to this videographer, who I have no idea who he is, and I've just given a like and asked my audience to go and share his video and like and subscribe and give him a comment. More importantly, let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, with a polite comment that doesn't immediately get removed by YouTube or the videographer himself. And he is called, or she, I don't know, it might be a she, could be a male, I don't know, the Conspiracist. Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly. But this particular videographer is relatively small. Is that 1.6 thousand? That's smaller than us. Not very often we cover people with smaller subscription base than our own. My God, this man needs it. Definitely pop along and let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, with a polite comment that just helps him along as a YouTube videographer. Anyway, anybody know who this guy is? Anybody heard of this guy or seen this video? The video being Scientist Debates Flat Earther full interview. Anybody seen this? This was shared by Sensual Goat. No? Okay, well, let's get straight into it, I guess. If nobody's heard of it, which isn't surprising, given our small ears.
Here with Professor Dan Albrighton from the University of Sussex. Pleased to meet you, mate. How you doing?
Ugh. Ugh. Can I do anything about the reverberation? Probably not. Let me just see what I can do. I want it to sound a bit rough.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Dan has very kindly invited me to his home, which is it's pretty rare that any of these people let me anywhere near them. So he's a professor.
I don't know who's who, but if he's saying that he's been let into this professor's home, right? So is this guy the flat earther and this guy the professor? Scientist Debates Flat Earther.
From the University of Sussex, he is a well-published scientific author of several bestsellers. Is that right?
Yeah.
Very well respected amongst his peers, as I've been reading. So, with that in mind, what makes you think you know more than me about everything?
All the things you just said.
Yeah, but what does all that mean?
Well, it means I've been...
Oh, someone's at my front door. Neil, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Well,
Carry on, people, carry on.
Thanks for filling in. Just deliver it at my front door. Is this staged? It seems at this stage that this is sort of a put on. They've just filmed in a library or somewhere similar, put a desk in front of this man, and then his appeal to his own accreditation. What makes you think you can disagree with me? Well, because of my qualifications. Okay.
Studying the universe for all my professional life. I've had my findings and publications extensively scrutinised by my peers, and they've looked for flaws, and the result is that my knowledge is as conclusive as it can get.
Conclusive in what regards? What are your conclusions, and where do they differ from the man in front of you? Because he's, as far as I can tell from the video, thus far not made any positive assertions. I mean, we don't know, we've not had a full introduction other than you, who he is. I don't really know, other than your age gap, that you would be the professor.
But have you done your own research?
What?
I see where you've gone. I do my own research. Like all the things that I know about science, I've literally gone out there myself and
I don't think you'd have this level of bravado in front of a real professor. So to me, this seems like bad acting. Could be wrong.
done an experiment to prove that. What about your knowledge have you actually researched yourself, or is it sort of...
He's trying to be Ali G, isn't he? You're not Ali G. You're not Sacha Baron Cohen. You're not that guy. This isn't funny. Nobody is laughing.
mainstream books and education?
Well, I'm not an experimental physicist or anything like that. I'm a theoretical physicist.
Well, yeah.
But, well, explain why you think your theory of the Earth being flat is valid.
He hasn't offered up a theory, so the professor is now engaging in a burden of proof reversal fallacy, because he's suggesting that the guy who's asking him about his accreditation, and in response when he's saying things like "what," again, that just seems like he's being quite rude. Now, because it seems so staged, the guy who's pretending to be a flat earther is suggesting that he's got scientific validity for his position in a way that's just too confident. He's either incredibly stupid, but then he couldn't present himself, at least to my way of reckoning this, or squaring this circle, because this all just seems and feels wrong.
Well, I've done my research. I've done my own research. So, first of all, there's just some fundamental things that don't work on a flat Earth. Is that right? Yeah, fair enough. Fair to say. Like,
aren't you supposed to be the flat earther? You've just told the professor, who's supposed to be the ball-believing guy in this skit, which is definitely what it is.
Mainstream science, no offence, will have us believe that we're on a spinning ball. Yeah, but everyone knows that water finds its level. Yeah, if you put water in a cup, it becomes a cup. Put water into a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Put water into a bowl, it becomes a bowl.
So I suggest that they're both of these guys, whoever they are, regardless of their position in reality, are grasping or grappling with the notions that they've just laid out in this particular part of the bit. Okay, so we've got a position where the stage is set with an appeal to authority and a flat earther's position with regards to water finding and maintaining level. Now, these two facts are both facts. This man does claim to know the world through his education and his science, theoretical or otherwise. The flat earther does know water lays flat. So it is quite interesting to see what will be the response from the globe head person in this skit.
I've got experiments I've done. I actually feel...
So far, this is a problem in terms of the representation and or if it's real. At this point, right, the flat earther's made his point. You say you know we're in a worldview that you've got from your theoretical stance. I say water's flat. Full stop. Period. That's it. Now, there isn't actually any response to that. Because what could the response possibly be? There isn't one, but you need to actually know that and then stop. When you put it to somebody in theory, that's pretending, or in reality, if this guy really is a professor or if you're doing it to a professor, you go, water's flat. It is. That's how it behaves.
Film them as well, and I like to go out there and really sort of, yeah, here's one that I've done. It was just sort of, so you know how people think that we're on a spinning ball?
No, you've already made your point, and now you're just ushering past the point on his behalf. What say you might be a couple of words that could follow that. But now it's like this skit is suggesting that after a flat earther wins, points out the water finds and maintains level, that's not congruent with a globe. That's a defeat to the globe. But what, now you keep stepping up to him with some evidence on your phone that he needs to proactively look at? Let's see what his response to that statement of fact that you gave him about water and it finding and maintaining level is.
And
yes,
water can stick to it. It's mental. I've proven that water can't stick to a ball. You know, you put water into a cup.
You haven't proven that water can't stick to a ball. No, you didn't do that. What you did was describe an axiom of water finding and maintaining level, which it does. It's useful, that fact. You saying, I've disproven water sticking to a ball? You haven't done anything like that. There is no axiomatic principle useful in any way, shape or form in regards to what water doesn't do with respect to a ball. That's garbage. Now you're just giving him lifeline after lifeline in this skit, it seems.
And so on. Have a look at this, right? This is again another easy experiment. So globe toads will tell you that we're on a spinning ball. And water sticks to it. I know it's fucking mental, but that's what they think. So, you know, it's like a religion in it, I suppose. But how do you disprove it? Very simply. I've got what's a fair, accurate interpretation of the globe. So this melon represents the globe, as it should. Why wouldn't it? It's pretty like for like, I'd say.
Again, it sounds like they're wrestling with their own cognition. If these two have come up with this skit together, then, yeah, just you suggesting that you can't have water do what the heliocentric worldview suggests it does. But we haven't had any response other than the guy saying, yeah, I'm a professor, therefore I know. We haven't had any responses from him yet. Now we're into this, I'm a flat earther, therefore I'm going to show you me holding a melon up and showing water not sticking to it. I mean, okay. You know, this is the crap standard of Dell 10 years ago, but there we go.
Nothing different about it.
Dell didn't manage to find something spherical. He got a deflated football, but, I mean, that's a different issue.
Gravity is still only a theory, so they reckon that we have water sticking all around us. As we previously talked about, it's why it's called sea level, because water always finds its level. This is what happens.
Yeah, again, he's described something that's axiomatic. And clue is in the title with sea level. Again, would you all agree that this is what we're actually dealing with? Two people struggling with these questions and then pretending to mock flat earthers as a result of their own cognitive battle. No, nobody's going to call it with me. Okay then, I guess I'll just appeal to the 86 people watching to share the show if I'm not going to get a response from the half a dozen people on the Discord panel or my own panel.
When you do pour water on the melon, as you can see, most of it ended up on the floor, a little bit on me, but it's the sort of price I'm willing to pay for all the sciences.
Yeah, that's the kind of experiment I do. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those sorts of things.
But that's just you pouring water on a melon.
Yeah.
That doesn't simulate the planet Earth in space.
Why would the flat earther be simulating the planet Earth in space? So what this is an elaborate version of what plays out daily when flat earthers talk to globeheads, which is suddenly the burden of demonstration about a water ball in a sky vacuum in violation of the second law of thermodynamics is on the flat earther to demonstrate. And because he hasn't done a good enough job, the professor's saying, well, that's not a decent enough presentation of my model I'm not proving. Or about the axiomatic principle of what the water did actually do in the demonstration, it laid flat. So of the two positions, is it that we're going to look at what the water ended up doing, and will always do, and is useful in building things? Or should we take the time to point out the flat earther didn't do a good enough job of representing how ball Earth in a sky vacuum should be modelled?
Well, I know, because the planet's not a globe. That's what I've been saying. So we're kind of starting to agree, I think.
Look.
He's saying it in irony. Yeah, that is the case. Yeah.
Let me explain how science works. So.
Right. Now we find out if this is actually a skit or not, don't we? I mean, I know that might not be true either, because this guy could be a theoretical physicist, think he knows about heliocentrism based on his studies and his peer review, as he's declared so far in this skit, and then he not know what science is. That's actually just as possible. So him giving a god-awful rendition of what science is in his worldview, or his mind's eye, as we're probably going to get, doesn't discredit this for being a skit either, does it? Because a real quote-unquote scientist could do this in the same way I know he's going to be represented right now. You watch.
A scientist will have an idea called a hypothesis.
So an idea that you'll call a hypothesis? Well, no. No. A hypothesis is a scientific prediction. It predicts the cause of a naturally occurring phenomena yet to be validated. It's a suppositional statement. It's an if A, then B statement. If A being your suppositional causal influencer and B being the naturally occurring phenomena you studied at the step that you haven't even described yet, you complete fraud or actor. I mean, either way, you're not a scientist, because your idea as a man is not a hypothesis. Now me, I'm an actual flat earther. This is not me doing a skit when I describe the cause and effect relationship that is absolutely without question natural science.
And he'll want to test that, or she will want to test that.
To test that hypothesis, you just told us it was your idea. How am I going to test your idea? That's ludicrous.
Hypothesis.
No, a hypothesis is a cause and effect relationship put down in a format that is if and then based. You just said it's your idea.
And then they will come up with an experiment to look for data, to test the hypothesis, to look for...
You just said that they test the hypothesis when they, actualise your idea that you had at step 1 in your version of this crap? This is a cluster screw.
For predictions that are made by that hypothesis.
Can you hear the tension in his throat as he says this? Ad acting or complete fraud pretending to be a scientist, which is all of them in astrophysicists' terms.
And when they've got enough evidence, enough data, they'll...
So what data, what evidence? So far, you have an idea, and then you call that idea a hypothesis, and then you do an experiment. That's what you told us so far. And that's gathering data? What an absolute crock of crap.
Publish the results in a scientific...
results of what? Them actualising your idea?
Scientific journal. And then that scientific paper will be reviewed.
I see. So you come up with an idea, you put it on paper, other people look at it. That's what you're actually describing. Yeah, this isn't science. It is, in real terms, what they really do, though, and call science. So in that respect, it's quite accurate. It's fraud, it's not science, it's not the scientific method, it's definitely not natural science. It is closer in reality to what he's just described, and that is also fraud. It's the fraud of the science we get told proves things. We just sow stories based on ideas of men that get put through peer review, exactly as this man just described.
By thousands and thousands of scientists all over the globe, and they will be checking for evidence.
What evidence? You've got your idea that you've called a hypothesis and said you've tested.
And they'll be looking for flaws. And they'll be...
Flaws in what? Your idea? I mean, in reality, cause and effect reasoning, when you have an if and then suppositional statement that if A, a causal influencer, then B, a naturally occurring phenomena you are studying, the flaw would be that you varied A and it didn't actually cause B when you said it did. But it's quite cut and dry in terms of what the flaws could be. When you're supposing that A will cause B, and then you're varying A to see if it causes B or not. If you vary A and it doesn't cause B, and then you write down varied A did cause B, they'll never know. Yeah, then they'd be catching you out in that regard. But the method itself has a built-in process to eradicate that. The process has systematic experimentation as part of the validation process. So if you suggest that A causes B, and suggest that you've put that supposition through experimentation to empirically validate it, then others would have to do it also. Repeated experiments, in other words.
Trying to disprove the hypothesis. That's the science.
No, you don't try and disprove a hypothesis. That's utter nonsense. Your attempt is to prove the cause of the effect. You're not trying to find out what doesn't cause it. In a hypothesis, you have the alternative and the null. The null is the zero difference result, written down. So, whereas your desired outcome is A causes B, A is your suppositional causal influencer, and if you validate it, it's a or an empirical validation of that causal influencer. A causes B isn't a statement of fact because of the experiment that you've put the process through, and then you've got your validation of causal influence. That's the whole point. Now, this man's just said you test to disprove. Well, no, that's also got a name. It's called a null hypothesis, otherwise known as zero difference result. That is to say, let's test A to see if it causes B, because I think A causes B. I varied A, and it did not cause B. Yeah, that's called a null hypothesis in exactly that format, if A not B. Null hypothesis, zero difference result. You're not testing for the null. That's idiotic. Tells me this man's a complete fraud. Doesn't even understand the basics of science. But yet he's on this little skit pretending to be the scientist in this little equation, which is all it is. What equation is that? The equation where we get deceived into believing there's a sky vacuum and the world moves around the sun based on flat earth measurements and the declaration that science has proven it. By these fraudsters who come up with a little idea and then call that idea empirical evidence, that's science, when it isn't. This is a nice breakdown of it.
Scientific method. And if they can't disprove it, and if all the evidence agrees with the hypothesis, it then becomes a theory.
No, completely wrong. Scientific method, in the simplest terms I can put it. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. That is something occurring in nature, something happening that you want to know the cause of. Step 2, formulate a hypothesis. That would be to suppose the cause of the effect you observed in step 1. It takes the form of an if and then statement. If A, then B is your scientific prediction, yet to be validated and also known as a hypothesis. Alongside it, as detailed a moment ago, is the null or zero difference result prediction. It is the antithesis of your desired outcome. It is if A, not B. They sit alongside each other, and upon validation of either the alternative or the null, because only one can be validated, lest you violate the law of non-contradiction, you, upon variation of A, either prove or disprove it, A, as the causal influencer, empirically validating your supposed cause or zero difference at the outcome stage. In other words, one of those two predictions, if A then B or if A not B, can be provided with proof. Only one can be validated. Either it causes it or it doesn't. And not causing it is in your prediction, and causing it is in your prediction. So one will get a tick, the other one will get a cross at the end of the process. That process, actualization of hypothesis, is called an experiment. Unlike the description given by this man, the proposed globe believer / scientist in this skit, who doesn't know what science is.
Or scientific fact, if you like. And that can take years and years and years of testing and testing and testing, and then eventually scientific consensus is reached.
See? You don't test and test and test and test and then reach scientific consensus. That's utterly absurd. You test to see if A causes B, and it either causes B when you vary it or it doesn't. And then if it does, the method requires systematically for it to be validated again by someone else to eliminate the idiocy of somebody who's put together the apparatus incorrectly, formulated an invalid hypothesis in the first instance. So systematically, you'd go through it again and again and again, not to form consensus, but to systematically validate that A does actually cause V.
And that's the scientific method.
It isn't.
Sorry, in case I missed it, have you done your own research or not?
Well, no, I'm a theoretical physicist.
Well, I have.
The point is, look, we're not talking about just a little bit of an experiment. We're talking about years and years of experimental evidence. And you've got to have years of experimental evidence with other people checking your work to see.
No, you don't. I mean, you'd have other people doing the experiment. That's not checking your work. It's them validating cause and effect by varying A and seeing if it causes B, as you have suggested you have validated if you have done the experiment. You're suggesting that peer review validates your just so story over years and years and years of refinement of a just so story. That's what you're actually detailing to this man. And it's eerily accurate.
See if it makes sense,
yeah.
And if they can reproduce those results.
The accuracy being the depiction of the fraud, not the eerily accurate, that's what we actually do in the scientific method as described by him. But eerily accurately, he's going through the motions of describing how his idea, as described by him, becomes science in his own description after years of what he calls experiment and peer review, lots of people checking it.
Results, and if the theory is predicting those results, you're just pouring water on.
Theories don't predict results. The prediction stage is a scientific prediction, otherwise known as hypothesis. If A, then B. That's the prediction. The theory comes after the validation of the experimentation itself. So if A does cause B, then you form theory with the proven experimental data. Not if A, not B. That's not, you can form a theory with a null, because you've got a zero difference result. You still don't know what caused B to occur because you varied A and it didn't cause B. So you still don't know what causes it, so you can't form a theory. If you do know what caused B to occur because you varied A and it caused B, then you form theory.
On a melon.
Have those people done their own research?
Yes.
That you could do here in theory, well, not theory, but you could do that for us as well. Like you could.
Well, no, because this isn't a lab. This is.
How about we try it a different way? Because how about we try? Let's say we've got a ball. How do you explain water sticking to a spinning ball? Like you got tides.
Again, what this examples quite admirably is how flat earthers whistle past their own graveyards. How do you explain water on a spinning ball? Stop.
How do tides work?
That's two different questions, isn't it? How do you explain tides? Well, number one, what has this man made an assertion that he knows how to explain tides to you?
Well, this isn't my field, but it's quite a well-known process how tides work because the Earth is spinning.
I know how tides, yeah.
And at the same time, the moon, which revolves around the Earth, has a gravitational pull.
No, it doesn't. How ironic that we would go through gravity in some detail at the beginning of the show, pointing out it hasn't been a force for 110 years. You think the moon pulls on the tides, do you, dickhead? You're claiming to be a scientist in this skit, yet your assertions are 110 years out of date and of a high school standard when it comes to gravitational, both-dimensional, pseudo-Riemannian space-time. No, it's just the pull of the moon and the gravity of the moon pulling on the... No, it isn't, dickhead. What a crock of crap.
I do have empathy, as you know, but that's where...
What? So does this just make the flat earther seem like a spastic? Nobody was talking about how empathetic you need to be or would be required in any circumstances for you to need to talk to camera about how empathetic you are. I don't really understand it. It is utterly stupid to do so. You know, why insert these non sequiturs? I mean, they are so pointless. I don't get it. Just for no reference other than me needing to say this to camera, I am a fantastic lover. Earth is flat. You don't need to make some non sequitur reference to something that's totally devoid of any sense or semblance of importance to the conversation. It's as important as how good a lover I am. Injected into this discussion for no reason whatsoever. I don't get it. Nobody cares how empathetic you are.
And with all due respect, it's the education system's fault. It's not yours.
What, that he just described gravity as a force of the moon pulling on the tides? Yeah, I mean, you could ascribe that as being the idiot, garbage education system that's causing this problem. You could do that, I suppose. But you've already asked him several questions you haven't actually got responses to that were pertinent. But I suggest that both of you are in on this skit, and they're actually just your way of airing these questions like they've been put out to the etheric educated, and the answer is because I'm educated and gravity pulls on the tides. What? No, not for 110 years.
Space isn't real.
Space isn't real.
No.
What do you mean?
Yeah, well, you've phrased it incorrectly. I mean, if it was me saying that, QE would be all over me like flies on the proverbial. No, outer space, the sky vacuum, claimed to be a 10 to the minus 17 torr vacuum, isn't real. Be specific. Space, what, length, breadth and depth? Yeah, that's very much real and utilised quite frequently. Outer space, the sky vacuum, is not real. It violates the second law of thermodynamics. Gas would be filling it. But this guy is just looking at him. Space isn't real. Response from claimed to be professor. Space isn't real, with an upward inflection.
You've seen Star Trek, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, so effectively what they learnt from Star Trek was that they can convince people there is such a thing called space. I know, mental, innit? But really, we live in a confined container on a flat plane.
Okay. Didn't need the container with a plane to really make this point, but you're fine. You could obviously want to tar some brush of flat earth idiocy into this. But again, here we are at the point where I pause because he's made a coherent point. Yes, we must be contained to have gas pressure.
So none of the heebie-jeebie voodoo stuff you've seen...
No, you just need to shut the hell up now. If you're watching this and you're a flat earther who can't keep your mouth shut after you make a decent point, then watch and learn. Because, yeah, I see it all the time. People who whistle past the graveyard of their own point they've made. Yet this is the end of his worldview. Yet the bleeding flat earther representation, aptly accurate, is that he can't shut his mouth, keeps talking, after he's made his point.
On Star Trek, Star Wars, same thing.
And talks about Star Wars and Star Trek just to make himself look utterly stupid. Yeah, it's also relatively accurate.
But then what's outside the container?
So now the burden is upon him to demonstrate that there'd be some need to demonstrate what's outside of the container? No, the burden has been successfully flipped in the skit. Meanwhile, who's the person with the burden of proof? The man asserting that there's a 10 to the minus 17 Tor sky vacuum in his worldview that apparently has been validated by men in coats who check by peer review. That's his assertion. Okay. Well, your worldview is that the sky's a vacuum. Why are you asking him to demonstrate what's beyond the containment that man can't demonstrate?
Who knows? That's the beauty of
why do you have to be challenged for that, mate? Why you have to answer? I don't know. Who knows? Same thing. Meanwhile, we haven't got a sky vacuum above our heads then because gas would be filling it. What's beyond the containment we must have. So we've got a quiet acknowledgement from both parties that there must be a container at this stage. Okay, so Professor's asking what's beyond the containment that must be there for gas to achieve pressure, and he's saying he doesn't know because somehow the burden's on him. Okay, well, that's wrong on many different levels, but we've both got a tacit acceptance of the containment. Yeah, there must be containment, lads. Let's see where we go from here.
We all do know space is space-time,
okay,
actually.
So you can't answer that one. What about volcanoes? Like, how do you explain, like...
Well, you could have let him actually waffle. I mean, he said space, well, actually space-time, and then you cut him off. The question to him was about the space we know beyond our heads that's a vacuum at 10 to the minus 17 Tor, and his response was to start waffling about space-time. Well, that's enough for me to get my teeth into, because what pseudo-Riemannian space-time from the mind's eye of a man named Einstein 110 years ago, superseding the force of gravity in a mass-attracting mass Newtonian context? Definitely not. Yeah, your pseudo-geometry isn't a sky vacuum above our heads or a definition that's going to somehow overcome the second law of thermodynamics' description of gas filling space. So no, your bent space-time's not going to cut it, mate. Pseudo-Riemannian geometry is not going to be an answer to that question that you immediately got cut off in this skit by the flat earther with his extra bravado that he wouldn't have in reality. He'd definitely be a conspirator, though.
On a globe, like, basically what I'm getting at is volcanoes aren't real either. Like, because on a globe, you need for the globe lie to be a thing in order for people to believe that volcanoes are things. It comes from the molten core.
So what that's called is corpsing. Anybody know what corpsing means? Anybody ever heard that term before?
No.
Rewind, I'll play again. I'll subscribe to what corpsing is. Now I can say without question this is a skit. Okay, what corpsing is where you break character with a laugh. That's called corpsing. Now, if this occurs on set and you're filming, you get a very angry director saying words to the effect of, "We are still rolling," meaning there's still film going through the camera, you stupid tossers on set. Now, get a grip and say the lines correctly. "We are still rolling," is what the irritated director would be saying to you at this point, because you've got to stop. Now, if you manage to continue, you've got what I would call an unusable take, because now it is clearly obvious because you've broken the fourth wall, however you want to phrase it, yeah? You see into the character, because the character's no longer what's being witnessed by you, the audience. So the suspension of disbelief fails because the character is no longer the character. It's the person playing the character laughing at the character's lines. Watch.
Because on a globe, you need for the globe lie to be a thing in order for people to believe that volcanoes are things. It comes from the molten core. But on a flat plane...
Did you hear? On a molten core. Yeah, that's called corpsing.
I did.
It's called corpsing.
Is that like Duper's Delight? Is that kind of like what that is?
No, it's not Duper's Delight. Corpsing is him trying to get through his lines and finding the notion that he's dealing with as a character amusing. So he's laughing at the character of the flat earther suggesting that volcanoes aren't real. So he can't maintain character through the absurdium of his own character. That's corpsing.
Also,
They've had to
people do it when their beliefs are so absurd, but they've accepted them. They'll do the same thing.
But he said you must believe that volcanoes it's coming from Earth core. Why I must believe that?
No, it's ridiculous. He's just pretending to be a flat earther so he can make the flat earther stupid for the purposes of ridicule.
I know, yeah.
So it's not something.
But also he's saying the sentence like we know that that lava whatever is coming from the Earth core. Obviously we know that, but how we know that? It's written in the books.
But it isn't.
Yeah.
Volcanoes don't come from the core. That's stupid nonsense. That's a misinterpretation of their own religion. I mean, maybe his own ignorance is what's leading him to corpse in this instance. I don't know, without asking. What I do know is, having done a directorial course when I was in college, and know how to deal with idiots when they're trying to actually get their way through their lines, but their ability is suddenly overtaken by their own perceived lack of sense of humour or their lack of grasp of their own lines or whatever it is that leads them to do this. When you're in the position that you just want to get the material dedicated, in this case, to camera, and your actor does this, you just want to throttle them. You know what I mean? It's unprofessional.
Find a way of fabricating and tricking us that volcanoes still exist.
How have they done that?
Good question. They've got.
Thank you.
They've got an underground tunnel chamber full of these magma things, and basically it's kind of like when there's enough.
It's just a couple of globers summarising their own ignorance of the subject now, isn't it? That's what this has descended into.
Enough pressure.
I don't know how many edits, but they couldn't keep character. They're probably, at this point, they're up to about, I would guess, almost the same as real time. So they managed to maintain character for about 8 minutes.
On the volcano spring, as it were, the lava will just sort of gush out at a press of a button. That's like...
What's with all these camera angles? Yeah? Just did a camera angle of his crotch and his hands going long, extending his hands with crotch cam. What was that all about? Did he just want to get his own dick in shot? What's that all about? I mean, is it a delusion that he's somehow a professional cameraman or a professional editor? Because he's got all these semi-artistic shots with the talent on one side of the shot and a blur of the other person on the other side of the shot. You're like, what is this? It's just two dicks in a library, isn't it?
Who's pressing the button then in your worldview?
The elites, the Illuminati, the NWO, whoever you want to call it. There's plenty of marketable terms on the hashtags and that. But basically, I know it's all quite hard to swallow because it's been going on for so long, and no one wants to admit that there is like a governing body that is just controlling our whole lives. But there is.
And they're controlling volcanoes.
They're controlling volcanoes, yeah.
To what end?
To trick people.
For what purpose would they do that?
Because then they would, there's nothing... If you can convince people that the Earth is a globe rather than flat, there's nothing you can't get them to believe.
This is it, right? I see this regularly.
The New World Order is controlling volcanoes. That's what I just got out of that.
No, it's they're descending us and the discussion about the subject into absurdium so they can cope with it mentally, because they've covered the main nub of the main issues that flat earthers would put to them if they were on the receiving end of it. But in this scenario, right, it's gaining some form of control over their own cognition. So rather than having a conversation with someone like me, because you wouldn't want to do that, you pair of dicks, because I would absolutely rip you both a new asshole and you'd leave crying. So rather than have that, they'd rather control the circumstance where they have a narrative. And that narrative can play out how they want that narrative to play out when they discuss their concerns about an Earth that is flat, that water finds its level, that you can't have water stick to a ball. All of these are unanswered questions that have been put in the narrative where the absurd nature of the flat earther overrides the poignant questions that are put to the professor. And in this narrative, the professor shrugs them off like they're completely inconsequential and don't even need an answer. And because the narrative continues, it means that mentally these pair of dicks can survive that awful truth being contemplated. Because it's been dealt with on camera, right? With him corpsing a severe tell. Something that you get told off by a director if this was anything like the professionalism that he hopes it is when he does his out of focus blur shot with both talent in shot and does his crotch cam with his arms extending. You're like, mate, you're delusional. Hello? You're not Hitchcock.
That's kind of like, it's one of them, if you can convince somebody that the shape of the Earth is something other than what it actually is, you just know that they're proper done in the head. You know, you've...
And we've had at least 10 seconds without an edit. Surely we can need an artistic shot in between here somewhere.
Got them.
So to prove your theory, if we want to call it...
No, we don't. We don't want to call it theory because you don't know what that is. We, actual flat earthers, me specifically, Nathan Oakley, I know what a theory is. It comes after scientific validation, that's experimentation, which comes after you providing a theory. No, it's actually a hypothesis, something you've called theory in this particular skit. Now, in reality, that's a scientific prediction that establishes the cause of an effect in a suppositional statement alongside a null zero difference result after observing a phenomena. Now, that's me going through the method backwards. That's to say I can go in reverse order of what you'd need to do whilst pulling apart your garbage, nonsensical drivel about what theories we might want to call this crap that you're waffling about. None of this is theory. None of this is science. All of this is your own fears projected out onto camera. You're having trouble hearing me, are you, Siri? Well, that's good to know.
Theory. You'd need some evidence of this mechanism to release the volcano.
Well, I haven't got it with me, but...
Well, no, but, there must be some evidence.
That's a big old stuttery sentence fragment there, sir.
Evidence of that, of these buttons being pushed.
Being a professor's hard enough. Pretending to be one as an actor with some tosser that you've got, even with a script, is still pretty hard, eh?
Releases the lava.
So you can't explain that one either. So we'll move on to something, maybe something a little bit...
Some top quality acting. That's this look in your face, mate. This is really good acting. Yeah? I'm sure you watched this back and went, man, I deserve an award. Look how shocked I look. I pulled that off completely.
Flight pass. Why? Like, so if
hang on a second. Is it just me, or are they going through quite a few of the housekeeping questions? Has this guy done this off the back of us and our unanswerable housekeeping questions needing to be put in a narrative where they don't even need to be addressed? They could just be brushed past quickly with some bad acting. Isn't this interesting?
If the Earth was a globe, flights would be able to just go anywhere around it, wouldn't they? Like, they would just sort of spin wherever they feel like it. Like, you wouldn't really have to even coordinate it. But because of the flat Earth, you have to have all these, like, special units, like airports, if you will, that are together communicating to make sure they don't collide. And that's what...
Flights fly over a flight path that would stop them colliding by keeping them at various flight levels that they maintain during their flight. So flight levels would prove a flat Earth, as in don't deviate from this flight level because you might hit another plane from the hubs that you're calling airports. Yeah, I mean, again, descending it into fast doesn't alter that planes do fly level. And to stop them crashing, they're maintaining different levels in different directions, organised by people on the ground. That's correct.
Well, they do on the flat plane.
Yeah, they do. They're flight levels.
It's vital. If it was a globe, we wouldn't need all this.
But you're not explaining why. You're doing a bad job. So, yeah, flight levels.
Need
why wouldn't you need it on a globe? You've still got the same
because you wouldn't have flight levels to maintain to avoid crashing into other planes.
issue about you can't have planes colliding.
You'd have a lot more space, and then you could just sort of, if you thought you were going to crash, you could just keep going and going. It's like circling the block.
Yeah, but the Earth's a very big planet. It would take you a very long time to go around it. So they want to save fuel. They don't want to.
We've established it's not.
That's his response in this skit. I mean, this is representative of their dumbassery in terms of their overcome of their own cognitive problems that they're having with the flat Earth that they've come across. And this is what they've got. I mean, this is what happens when you control the narrative. It's not very satisfying for anybody. Because what he's just said isn't going to suddenly make a globe believer think, yeah, you know what? He's right. It's a really big ball and that. It would take a long time to fly that 24,000 mile circumference that is suggested to be ball-shaped. And yet it's designed to be ball-shaped at a rate of 8 inches per mile squared, falling away from your position when you fly over a level surface and maintain flight levels. Yeah, Earth's flat. You can show it with flight data. We do. Black box data specifically from the NTSB, life and death specific data that we use to say Earth's measured flat. Here's their flight level that they maintained for a couple of hours in this flight that was level, measured and proving a Earth that is flat. What's this garbage that is Flat Earth Tossers presenting us as?
A planet, as we think, though, wouldn't we? So
no, we wouldn't, would we? If you were a flat earther, but you're not. You're a tosser, sharing your pain as a globe believer.
No, you've said that, but you know, the Earth is a globe, and you can't just fly all the way around it until you land. You've got to.
Don't fly around flight levels, dumbass. When you say fly around it, do you mean you've got some data that would indicate we fly around something when we're maintaining level flight? No, we don't fly around it. So your baseless assertion that Earth is a globe, actually begging the question, in this instance, a fallacious set of reasoning where you automatically assume your outcome, isn't backed by you saying, well, we fly around it when we don't. Flights maintain level.
Go from A to B in the shortest possible journey. I don't see.
The shortest possible straight line over a level. Yeah, that would be a flat Earth prerequisite, though, wouldn't it? So going around it in the shortest possible curve, it sounds like an idiot statement that an idiot would make in a skit.
How your theory about...
These aren't theories. Theories come after experimental validation. Me and Nathan Oakley, Flat Earther, the one that's humiliating you. The one that you wouldn't want to face when you control this skit scenario that isn't real. Yeah, me, I'd be taking a giant dump on your pathetic understanding of science, wouldn't I? That's why you need to control this scenario where you sit in a library and pretend you're talking to a professor. If he is, he's a dumbass fraud because he doesn't know what theory is. If he isn't, it's just you tossers trying to share your pain with an audience.
Aeroplanes really proves it's...
So, explain to me why it is that no one can actually visit the South Pole.
People have visited the South Pole.
They haven't. You go there and you get met with hostility from one... Sorry.
Got on his line and they've kept it in.
No, you haven't. The people haven't been there. It's guarded. It's guarded. They won't let you there. And I believe the reason is because that is basically...
They're not. This is edited. Could you not have edited out where he forgot his freaking line?
Where you...
It's complete non-sequitur point. Why did you jump in the South Pole? What does that have to do with flight?
Nothing. This is what they want a flat earther to be. This is indicative, quite literally, of what MC Toon wants me to be. This literally is what Toon wants me to be. Not a guy who says, yeah, we measure Earth flat with your elevation angles that you measured there, Toon. He wants me to be a guy that says, you can't go to Antarctica because it's got guns to stop you. That's what Toon wants me to be. And he's representing it in this skit. Just weird that he forgot his line and they kept it in the edit. Why would you do that?
Imagine the poles to be, it's actually on the flat plane, it's actually like a round ice wall. And what they're
got to insert some feast of nonsense. I mean, the pain relief. Go ahead, whoever it is from Discord with their mic open.
Yeah, Nathan, he's from the beginning, if you remember, he said something about how water behaved. That was about 10-30 seconds conversation about that. And then after that, it's argument about behind argument, volcanoes, science. Now it's South Pole, ice fall, and that's 10 seconds. When my question is, when he will come back to that 10 questions, because he's flat earther, sea level, that stuff. They didn't go too much into that, but about volcanoes, they had so good conversation. Even God said that that people controlling the volcanoes, the flat earther. Yeah, you're stupid, earth cannot be flat. Yeah, that's the conclusion. Yeah.
The reason, like you said earlier, the reason why you would lie about this sort of thing is to protect from the resources. Like, so we're living here on this flat plane, yeah,
Right.
And there's an ice wall. They won't let us anywhere near it. Why is that? Not just because it's cold. It's nothing to do with Santa Claus.
But people have been to the South Pole. There's an Antarctic expedition that's based there, and we have photographs from space of.
Then explain this.
Sorry, photographs from space? No. See, you don't have a space in quotes, because you were questioning him earlier. What do you mean when you say space? Yeah, now you're using it in this shortened term. Now, outer space, the sky vacuum to take pictures from, doesn't exist. There is no second law of thermodynamics violating area of volume that gas isn't filling to take pictures from. Outer space, the sky vacuum you think you get these pictures from, is fake. It violates the second law of thermodynamics. That's gas dispersion law. How gas entropically would fill that area of volume. Always, without exception.
Yes. From outside the wall, why is it that this sort of landmass is actually an abundance of resources? That's why they're high.
Again, it seems like we're going to now go into the dissension into this is a flat earth numpty. Here's how he will be behaving when you talk to him, because they want us to be idiots like this guy is being, representing us with his script and his skit. We're not numpties. No, when we get to the sky vacuum, we're not asking about stupid idiot nonsense about ice walls. That's what the Feast of Nonsense has dictated that a lot of actual numpties who've come to the subject do when they come to discussing it. We don't do that. I don't do that.
I did it because you've got what I reckon, is you've got several other civilizations living.
It's a bit of an in-joke, but while we were editing the book on Friday, we had the word reckon in there, and Adam and I were disgusted that it would be kept in there because the context was about reconciliation or reconciling or reckoning, as in making things correct, reckoning them. And we're like, no, in British English, when you say reckon, it means best guess. Now, obviously, on the fly, me and Adam then have to rattle off a few examples where we say we reckon we've got the right example of how it's a best guess example. And because we're doing it, making the suggestion, it's not as easy as just pulling out of this a point where the flat earther says he reckons something. I reckon. Do you now?
On different planes outside ours, and they're basically using our species to harvest energy, resources.
Hello, Kubrick. You're on the wrong person in the edit. You're filming his reactions. That's fine for a second or two, but now you've just got a man with his lips not moving, listening to a man who's not on the frame of the shot, talking indefinitely.
And anything really that funds.
Yeah. You see, he's nodding his head no. You can have that for a second. Then you cut back to the man talking. Yeah, you're definitely not going to win any Oscars with this.
Supplies their life.
Who's doing this?
It's important that we see him for that who's doing this stuttery nonsense reaction at the end of the sentence. Really important that we stayed on him for the entirety of this. And we get to see the zoom out. Oh my God. I feel like I'm in Jaws. Oh my God.
Who are these?
Could be anyone, really. That's
anyone.
Could be. We don't know. I don't have all the answers.
Do we have any evidence of this?
Well, we know that that's a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know that the ice wall is protecting stuff. Like, if you try and go there, you know how penguins are flightless birds.
Yes.
Did you also know birds aren't real?
Okay, this is just descended too far for me to want to carry on anymore. I can't really extract any worth out of it. So I think, although we've actually only got about a minute and a half left, why not? Let's just hear what else we've got, see if there's any little golden nuggets in the last 90 seconds.
Birds aren't real.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that, no.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky, but I saw it on a TED Talk about how birds aren't actually real. They were basically all stolen by the government, all kidnapped, and they were inside was put like robot technology, like AI, which is also now extended.
All birds, or just the penguins?
No, all birds, and then specifically the penguins. They're a bit more of a hostile group, if you will. Kind of like, you remember the film?
I mean, you can want us to be this, lads, all you like, but it won't alter the reality of us whipping you around by your short hairs, pointing out that you can't have gas pressure without a container. Then that, yes, we will want a response to the fact that water remains level when at rest. That is something that you'll need to address if you want to actually enter into a discussion with me. Furthermore, if you're going to talk about being in Antarctica, I'll talk about the people who've recently been there and how they measured Earth flat when they were there. That's the sort of thing I'd actually bring up. Awkward discussions. Not with some guy with a beard turtling.
Film The Rock with Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage.
I haven't seen that.
You've got the mercenaries. They're like the special forces.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the penguins on Antarctica are the special forces of Antarctic defence.
Oh my god! I mean, I don't know what to do with this.
You wasted a minute and a half with that? Just ended.
We haven't gone through the full minute and a half yet.
Thank God.
I mean, I don't know. What do I say to this? What can you say to this?
So if you try and go there, they're just hostile.
He's an asshole.
Like, they won't let you anywhere near them. They're the ones guarding Antarctica, and I think it's probably.
So it's so when you go to Antarctica, it's the penguins that
they won't even let
don't
you
let you
board.
get there.
Yeah, well, they're not penguins, are they? Let's be honest. They're like some sort of robot inside. It's weapons of mass destruction. You know, we just got it wrong in 2001. We thought we were looking for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. No, we got the extremities of a temperature correct, but it wasn't the hottest place in the Earth, the equator. It was the coldest place. We just got it wrong. We're having an off day. Like, weapons of mass destruction are actually on Antarctica.
And
what's the guns, Nathan? Where's the guns, Nathan? Where's the guns?
Sounds mental, I know.
He's a oh my God, he needs help. He needs help. Don't see any guns, Nathan.
Oh my God. Okay, Toon. Okay, Toon. We get it. We'll understand what you're telling us all. There's no guns there. Thanks, Toon. Thanks. Right, with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
You're laughing.
Got to mute your line. So at the end of the show, in the outro, we've got, I always thought they should have remade the birds. In my outro. Oh well.
Yeah, but you didn't get the main part. I said using birds of prey, like eagles.
No, I just scrambled my way to the mute button.
Using the penguins from Batman Returns, man, with the little rockets. Come on, man. That's who's guarding Antarctica.
That was a proper mess. The show was a proper mess today.
I mean, that's what I just got out of that.
It reminds me of, The Office, those mockumentary style, especially when you started pointing out, like, the zoom out and he's just on his reaction. It just seemed like just more of a skit, more evidence of that.
Yeah, but no, you're right, and I'm glad you've said it, because it now gives me an opportunity to say this. The Office, in the way it's shot, I understood what they were going for, but I despised it. I couldn't watch it. They're taking the mick out of people doing a poor job of those corporate documentary style films that don't go out to very many people. They're not being televised for the people in the next office or whatever, right? It's a paper mill that the whole thing's set in. So anything that's being filmed there is almost inconsequential to your wider reaching public. So it's a small audience that it's being filmed for, but therefore the quality is low and what they're focused on is wrong. The reaction of the guy while there's another guy talking to zoom out at the end just looks highly unprofessional, right? Now, when Ricky Gervais does it, he's doing it ironically. That takes skill to do with the timing to make it look semi-professional, but done badly, in a professional, ready-for-TV way that's still got the humour and irony for an audience to follow it and get it. Him doing it, this YouTuber doing it, just looks like shitty filming. It just doesn't look like anything other than what it is. Just low grade, not even close to professional. Somebody amateur trying to pretend they're professional, right? By zooming out and doing blurry shots and cross shots with the blurry back of the head of the one talent in the foreground. You're like, oh, get lost. It doesn't need stylizing. You're having a laugh, right? Number one, if you're going to do that, at least edit out where you fumble your lines. Do retakes when you corpse. I mean, come on.
All they needed was like to look at the camera real quick with that sarcastic look. We got a TV show.
Yeah,
we missed the fourth wall break.
I was just about to say exactly. When Brent breaks the fourth wall, he's number one. It's Ricky Gervais. He knows how to act. He knows not to look at the camera. So when he does it as Brent, he's like ironically saying in an office video, the manager still can't help but look at the camera and talk to it, the tosser. So that you feel that way about the character being a tosser because he's not breaking the fourth wall, he's just talking to the camera in a shoot. But suddenly it becomes a fourth wall break when it becomes something televised. Yeah? Now, Brent, the character, doesn't realise that. So we mock him for it. When these YouTubers do it, they become the Brent. They become that guy. It's like, oh, you dickheads. Now, that's what you get. Now, me, I can criticise this to the nth degree because I was trained in it. This is what I actually did at college when people mock me for being performing arts major. You're like, okay, yeah, but it does actually mean I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this sort of stupid shit that people try and pull off. No, you've got no talent, so get lost. That's why no one laughed. What we did do is pour scorn on your imaginings of what a flat earther is and look deeper into the psychology of why you do this. Yeah, it's just an exercise in pain relief done badly by amateurs pretending to be Hitchcock, which is even more hilarious.
Like, are they pretending to do the mockumentary but just bad at it, or are they just suck as
it just is the mockumentary.
Okay.
It's what the Brents are taking the piss out of. They are what The Office is taking the piss out of. They're not The Office. They're not doing it ironically. They're taking the piss out of flat earthers. That's their irony. They're saying, look how stupid we are. That's what they're trying to achieve with this. They're not trying to achieve that next level that is achieved by someone like Ricky Gervais. Now, whether or not I appreciate that particular type of humour, knowing how it's constructed, it's difficult for me to find most comedies like that funny because of exactly that, knowing how it's constructed, what the purpose behind it is in the method of what they're doing.
It's like the camaraderie of making of insults, right? Oh, we're cool because we're making fun of those flat earthers over there. Well, that's what you do when you don't have any argument. When literally your argument is a concession to our point. So that's what you do. You just make fun of them. I can see this happening more and more. Just make fun of the flat earthers because you can't debate them. Can't argue with them because it's not a debate. And they hold the high ground. That's really all there is to it.
It's hilarious either way.
Yes, it is. Keep doing it. I think. Because you know what? You keep insulting us, that just keeps us in the, it just keeps us going. Like you're still talking about us, right? Because this was supposed to be put away and put to bed a long time ago. But here we are, still here, listening to you guys fumble whether the Earth is too big to measure curve, or we measure it and have to fly around it. You still gotta figure that out. So keep making fun of us. Yep, I agree. That's your best strategy, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Their best strategy is poisoning of the well, and this is a method to do that.
Is anyone familiar with the podcast called The Higher Side Chat Show?
I've heard of the Higher Side Chat. Can you hear me on this microphone? I might as well get a little test of a microphone.
Yeah.
You can?
Yep, you do sound a little different.
Oh, I should hope so. It's on a 1960s Sennheiser that I've just converted to balanced. Well, at least it works. Higher Side, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, basically on Greg, he's got Jaron on the latest episode, and he's getting quizzed about TFA and all that kind of stuff, and how he turned his back on flat Earth. It's a very interesting listen. I think it would be people would enjoy your run through that. I've posted a link in the text chat.
Yeah, we'll cover that tomorrow. Cool. If someone can post that into Master B, that can be what we cover tomorrow.
I'll have a look. I'll see if I can do that. If not, can someone else? The link's in main text chat.
Cool. Thank you very much. Mike is a proper dog's dinner. This is Sennheiser. Okay, cool. Teach my youngest how to ride a bike. Yeah, this mic's just gone up in value by £10. It works balanced, which is good. Sennheiser MD402K. It comes out of the mic as a DIN cable, and then from the factory they supply you with a DIN adapter to single-ended TS. And I've just gone to AliExpress and bought a single-ended TS adapter to balanced, and it works. So while it might look like a dog's dinner, it means I can write the word XR in the eBay ad.
Excellent. Glad it works. Nathan, when do you think the Feast of Nonsense will vanish?
Don't. The Feast of Nonsense is people's way of coping with this. Can you hear me? Check.
So you think you're still going to have these people doing videos talking about ice walls and freaking penguins being robots and all the other nonsense that went along with it? It's just going to keep happening.
When they stop making movies about space, I think they'll stop. But if they keep making movies about space, it's going to keep happening forever.
Space is one thing, but the Feast of Nonsense, no matter how loud we yell from the rooftops, these topics are still coming up. It's ridiculous.
Check. You hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Yes.
I don't know what happened there. It's because I'm fiddling around with things. What was your question, Neil? Sorry. I answered it and then realised my mic wasn't working. What was your question again?
Talking about the Feast of Nonsense, when is it going to be gone? I mean, you know what?
Never.
I just answered my own question. My brother still sends me videos, and he's a full-fledged flat earther.
Space is part of the Feast of Nonsense.
Yeah, but is space the feast of nonsense?
Yeah, they just
No.
came out with a fact, a pseudo scientific fact that the whole universe.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not the feast of nonsense that came along when flat Earth came along. Ice walls and no more trees not being real, or mountains freaking used to be
Or
civilizations or
melted
something. Who
buildings.
knows? Yeah, mountain buildings and the mud floods and mudslides. Who the heck? What else went along? Reptilians.
Well, there
Yeah,
is
but
more
it's
evidence
kind of a
for mud
catch
flood.
22 though, right? Because we also say, just know the Earth is measured flat and move on with your day, right? So it's kind of a like we don't kind of like when they talk about that shit, but at the same time, it's like if it's just measured flat, okay, what else do you do? Now talk about all the other crap. Why not? Right? I can't be completely mad at them for doing that.
I like when you tell them it's measured flat, and then they ask you what the measurements are. Then you give them the measurements, and they still ask what the measurements are.
Yeah, the same ones you use to create your ball in your mind, because that's the only place it exists. Like the spoon.
But there is no spoon.
Exactly.
There's more evidence for a mud flood than there is for space.
Oh boy.
Well, there is. What?
Give me your evidence of mud floods. Let's go. Let's see how civilizations are buried. How are you going to validate that?
Well, all the like old cities and the buildings are half covered with dirt and mud. That's some evidence that points to that.
See how easy that is? Because once you realize you're breathing, and obviously if you're breathing, there can't be a vacuum that you're surrounded by, then just move on with your day. Oh, look, there's mud over there. Let's talk about what's going on over there. Because we don't have to talk about a vacuum anymore. There's no vacuum. I'm breathing. Thanks.
So because there's buildings with dirt on them, there were mud floods. Okay.
No, not buildings with dirt. Buildings half buried.
I could show you some of that in an earthquake.
And earthquakes could have contributed to that as well. I'm just saying that there's more evidence for that than, space.
I'd probably agree with that. Because look, breathing. Therefore, no vacuum.
What do you mean space? You mean a vacuum of space? Because I look up and I see the stars, the moon, the sun.
You know what he means, Neil. Stop.
Oh, you got to do something. Who's the big mud flood guy? That leaky guy, right?
Nobody's playing with you, Neil. Nobody wants to play.
The guy whose
Martin
mother
Leakey.
said he talks a lot of shite.
Oh, yeah. I didn't understand what you said. Yeah, Martin Leakey or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he's referring to a conversation I had when his mother was still alive. So it's a bit. I suppose she's been dead for quite a while, so it's not that disrespectful. But my wife and I, when she was pregnant with Eleanor, so this is 8 years plus ago, were sat in his mother's little cottage with him, and he's going through some of his stuff in his mother's house, maps specifically, and talking about stuff akin to mud flood things, going through it with my wife and I. And Martin's explaining it. She's telling my audience about Martin's mother. She's laughing. So, and after he'd finished explaining whatever it was about the map that he was holding up at the time, there's a small pause in the conversation, and his elderly mother pipes up and says, "Doesn't he talk a lot of shite?"
God bless her.
Right, well, I've got something to do, some administrative work. Either I can round out if the conversation's going to end, or I'm going to entrust you guys to keep it going for at least 10 minutes while I do something. Is it going to be around out to the end of the after show?
I have to go to work, so you
can't be relied upon. Shocking.
Yeah, I'm gonna start to get a little bit busy right now, so I won't be able to talk very much in a little bit.
Well, I'm going to round out because we are going to do the book, and I do need to do administrative stuff and let Platzi in. Hey, QE, can you see if you can send Platzi a message, see if we can get her in the Hangout? I'm going to round out on that note. So with that, another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ Panels for making today's after show short though it was possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.